What is propaganda? Well, there are tens of popular definitions from 1927 to 2013, but put somewhat simply, propaganda is strategically devised messages that are disseminated to the masses by an institution to generate action/belief benefiting its source. Now that we have a common understanding of what propaganda is, let us move on to the origins of propaganda. Propaganda has been an ever-present part of humanity. In the Roman Empire, where Emperor Augustus had busts of his face made portraying him as considerably younger than he was to portray more strength. Flash forward to revolutionary France, to the Women's March to Versailles, when rumors circulated of Marie Antoinette telling her servants arrogantly to let them eat cake. This caused the women to storm the palace in a mad dash to the queen. Marie probably never said those words, but it serves to illustrate the power propaganda can hold over people. Propaganda itself was first used to describe the missionary activities of the Catholic Church under Pope Gregory XV in 1622. The word at this point was not associated with misinformation. Propaganda had began to be recognized as the word we use it as today in 1927 when Harold D. Laswell published The Theory of Political Propaganda. Propaganda helped the governments of World War I because they needed a larger army, but no one would join. Without propaganda, the government would likely have a significantly less amount of people joining the army. The posters displaying war made it look exciting, made it look fun, and this persuaded people to come and join. The posters made not joining war a shameful and embarrassing thing that you should feel guilty about, and joining war something you should be very proud of. The poster also hid the harsh truths of the reality of war. The posters were carefully designed to manipulate men into joining the war, and the real death, blood, and pain were never displayed in any poster. So the main significance of propaganda was getting people to join the war, and without the posters and false advertisements, the numbers of men willing to join would have been significantly lower.
1. Propaganda was everywhere. It was most common in persuading and making people feel bad. Where propaganda was found in this time in World War I was newspapers. Press and advertisement was released in newspapers all over the U.S. and the world, convincing people to join the war. Where you can find propaganda during World War I is easier than you think. You had to look for 8 ways of propaganda. Propaganda is card stacking, hyping the thing it is advertising up and stacking the cards in favor of it, ignoring the bad parts and amplifying the good parts. An example of this propaganda during World War I is the ads showing that being in the war is noble and something to be proud of, which it is, but the ads say nothing about the horrors of the war. Second way is name calling, putting down the opposite side of the thing that it is advertising to make your side look better. An example of this in World War I is propaganda that put down Germany. Is bandwagon. This is when the persuader tries to make the person seeing the ad accept what they are saying, or they'll be missing out on something. An example of this in World War I is an ad that says, "Step into your place," making it seem like you have to join the war right then or you'll be missing out on something. Next way is testimonial. This type of propaganda is when a well-loved or famous person supports the idea, making others think it must be good because this person loves and supports it. An example of this in World War I is Uncle Sam saying, "I want you for the U.S. Army." Way of propaganda is transfer. This is the type of propaganda that is used when describing 2 things, and the first thing is getting put down. Then the second thing is praised, making the second thing immediately sound way better. An example of this in World War I would be a poster saying, "Being at home is boring, so come to war." The next way is glittering generalization. This is when your beliefs are put into a movement. An example of this is in World War I, a poster saying, "For every fighter is a woman worker." If people support women working, then they would support this. The last form of propaganda is plain folks. This is when something is persuaded by saying things like everyone's doing it. An example of this would be a poster in World War I saying, "Who's absent? Is it you?" This is making it sound like everyone is doing it. You know the types of propaganda, you can know where to find it.
From the outset of World War I, both sides used propaganda as a way to manipulate international opinion. They devoted massive amounts of resources and an insane amount of effort to produce materials designed to shape opinion and action internationally. Germany devoted some of its resources to influence the opinion of Americans. The war The War Plotters of Wall Street, which was published in 1915, is an example of this. It tells the story of immoral financiers trying to draw the U.S. into war, which would be against its interest and harmful to its economy. The book argued that financial loans to Britain would never be repaid, unlike the German propaganda, which lacked subtlety, as most of it was produced by the Fatherland Corporation. Britain directed publishing to commercial publishing houses, which were under the impression that the work was not made under the direction of the state, but instead was independently produced.
Example of propaganda because it implies that your place is to join the war, and that is what everyone else is doing. So why are you not doing it too? It made people feel like it was an obligation to leave their normal life, seen on the lower right people in suits, and get into uniform and join the war.
This image is an example of propaganda because it is making the man feel guilty and embarrassed when he realizes that he did not do his part in the war, and his daughter knows he did nothing. The advertisement is essentially saying that your daughter will know that you did not do your part in the war effort, making people want to join the war so they have stories to tell to their future children.